A lot of you have probably seen this video before.
Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 The news' job is to inform you about the current state of the world as well as their opinion on the situation. Mark Twain famously said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." However, according to the mainstream media reporting, this doesn't apply to them. What do I mean by this? Well, like Mark Twain said, world events throughout the years are similar, but they are not duplicates of each other. The mainstream media maybe didn't understand the last part, as they have been guilty of repeating the same rhetoric for similar world events in certain areas or under similar circumstances despite situations being different. For example, on October 7, 2023, Hamas attacked innocent Israeli civilians. In response, Israel has been bombing Gaza and Palestinians despite there being innocent civilians there. This is a really terrible series of events, and it is difficult to assess the situation. On June 12, 2014, 3 Israelis were kidnapped and murdered in the West Bank by Hamas. In response, Israel organizes Operation Brother's Keeper, in which they arrested 350 Palestinians. As a result, 11 died and 50 were wounded. On July 30th, the bodies of the 3 Israelis were found and sparked an anti-Arab riot in which extremists kidnapped and murdered Palestinian teenager Mohammed Abdu Khadir. After these events, the two sides exchanged bombing each other for about a week before, on July 7th, 2014, Israel launches Operation Protective Edge. The result of this were 2,310 dead Palestinians and 73 dead Israelis. The timeline of these events are not as black and white as the events that took place on October 7th, 2023. One thing that is clear is that Israel certainly got the better of the Palestinians, in which 70% of the casualties were civilians. These are the media responses for both events.
I reaffirm my strong support for Israel's right to defend itself.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Hamas should be responsible for the use of human shields.
Ensuring Hamas can no longer terrorize Israel and use Palestinian civilians as human shields.
The Hamas is really the one that are using the civil population as a human shield.
Although the events are similar, as in it is in the same territory, with the same people and the same complicated history, the circumstances are not exactly the same. On January 26, 2023, Israel initiated a military raid in Jenin, which killed 10 Palestinians, followed by targeted airstrikes. July 3, 2023, Israel engaged in a major assault in the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank, resulted in 12 dead Palestinians, 100 injuries, and 500 Palestinian families had to leave their homes. As a matter of fact, prior to the October 7th attacks, from January 2023 to October 6, 2023, 263 Palestinians were killed by Israelis compared to the 21 Israelis that were killed. This probably is good information to learn for people to understand this conflict a little better. However, you will struggle to find this anywhere in the mainstream. From May 6 to May 21, 2021, Israel and Palestine had another conflict which involved many rockets being fired from both sides. This resulted in 256 dead Palestinians and 14 Israelis. From this conflict, a video of a young Palestinian girl named Nadine Abdel Taif emerged.
I'm always sick.
think I'm always, I don't know. I can't do anything. You see all of this. What do you expect me to do? Fix it? I'm only 10. I can't even do anything this morning. I just want to be a doctor or anything to help my people, but I can't. I'm just a kid. I don't even know what to do. I get scared, but not really that much. I do anything for my people, but I don't know what to do. I'm just 10. I'm just 10. All of this, when I see it, I literally cry every day, saying to myself, why do we deserve this? What did we do to this? My family said they just hate us. They just don't like us because we are Muslims. Why does Muslims act for you like that? We're just kids. You see all of the kids around me? They're just kids. Why wouldn't you just send a missile to them and kill them? It's not fair. It's not fair.
This video went viral in the Middle East. If you look up this video on the YouTube channel, The Middle East Eye, it received over 2.8 million views. Now, you would think that the mainstream would cover this. Well, nope. The only mainstream news that covered it was CNN, and they only played 17 seconds of the 1 minute and 20-second video with only a little over 100,000 views. Let me be clear that I do not have a dog in this fight, and this video isn't an anti-Israel pro-Palestine or vice versa. This video is just showcasing the flaws in modern media. But it is clear that there is an indication that no matter what the circumstances of a particular region or people, the media will spew the same narrative no matter what. Let's take China. The United States are entering, if not are already, in a Cold War with China. Both sides are engaging in nefarious activities in each other's territories, and it seems at any time a conflict will erupt between the two nations. But how much is the disdain for the CCP is based on their competing economy rather than their infiltration of American influence? The reason why I bring this up is that in the 80s to early 90s, Japan was an economic competitor for the United States and was growing to become a threat. Despite Japan being a strong ally for the United States throughout the Cold War, from reading these headlines, you would think that Japan was going to be the new Soviet Union. Let's compare articles. There seems to be a common theme in which the media only covers certain subjects: the Middle East, Russia, Asia, and North America. I'll give an example. During the time of this video, the war in Ukraine is happening. If anyone is watching this in the distant future, the Ukraine war started in February 2022 when the Russian Federation invaded the country, which is their closest ally, over concerns of it joining NATO. This has been the biggest story for the past 2 years until the October 7th attacks in Israel. And of course it is. A major country invading another is always a juicy story, which fits the journalist's motto, if it bleeds, it leads. But what the media fails to report is that this event or the events involving Israel and Palestine are not the only events that involve major conflict. There has been no coverage of the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The tension of these two regions began after the dissolvement of the Soviet Union. The region of Nagorno-Karabakh was at stake. The people of Nagorno-Karabakh sought to join Armenia, being that the population is Armenian. Azerbaijan doesn't see it this way, as they feel Nagorno-Karabakh is theirs to take. This is an ongoing tension that has had many conflicts in the 80s, 90s, and in 2020 when a military confrontation broke out. The conflict was resolved by Russia and resulted in a ceasefire, with Azerbaijan acquiring the land they occupied during their offensive. Why is this relevant? Well, on September 19, 2023, when Azerbaijan violated the 2020 ceasefire and launched a large-scale military offensive in Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan blocked bypass routes and prevented Armenians from leaving, as well as blocking any humanitarian aid, essential goods, Red Cross, and Russian peacekeepers. On top of this, sabotaging important needs such as gas, electricity, and the internet. In total, over 120,000 Armenians were trapped in an area with scarce resources such as food and water, as well as a blockade of these basic needs coming in. This, of course, was considered an ethnic cleansing or a genocide according to numerous of genocide experts. I never knew that was a thing, and violated Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. How much media coverage did this get? Very little. Sure, there are articles and a few videos, but it had very little of any push for the public to see. Compared to the coverage of Ukraine, Gaza, Trump, etc., it is not even close. Let's take Sudan. Sudan has had a lot of civil wars in the past, the latest being in 2011 in South Sudan, which resulted in South Sudan gaining independence. This became a problem with the leader of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, as he lost access to oil reserves in Sudan. Because of this, the Rapid Support Forces were created and sent to occupy gold mines in Darfur. The RSF, along with the Sudanese armed forces, received large funding from Bashir. However, the citizens of Sudan didn't approve of this as the country's economy was rapidly falling. This ignited large protests and influenced the leaders of both RSF and SAF, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan with the SAF and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo with the RSF, to overthrow Bashir, leaving the two men in charge of the country. Unfortunately, this led to a power struggle between the two men, and on April 15, 2023, fighting took place in the capital city of Khartoum and the Darfur region. So far, 9,000 to 10,000 people have died, including numerous of massacres such as the Jenin massacre on April 15 to June 22nd, the Masalit massacres, April 24, 2023, Mistare massacre, May 27, 2023, and Armadada massacre, November 8, 2023. This is a very big deal, but again, little to no coverage. Why? Well, maybe Westerners don't care as much, or maybe everybody knowing about the Sudan war doesn't fit the media's agenda. I think it is clear that at times the media can wear many faces. I am sure some of you may recognize this man, Robert Kennedy Jr. Lately, he has had some interesting viewpoints on vaccines and the lack of regulations they have in creating them. Him and podcaster Joe Rogan have been labeled as anti-vaxxers by the media, and they certainly don't mean that in a good way. But what if I told you the same media that criticized anybody who questioned the legitimacy of vaccines were once in agreement of the anti-vaxxers? In 1998, Dr. Andrew Wakefield published a paper called The Lancet, which suggested that there was a potential link between autism and MMR vaccines. The paper got a lot of attention, and a lot of kids didn't end up getting the MMR vaccine because of this concern. The General Medical Council concluded that Wakefield was dishonest in his findings and decided to remove his medical license. Now, I don't know enough about vaccines to give my 2 cents, so I'm not going to comment on that topic. However, the media certainly made their comments. Before Wakefield's study was investigated, these were the headlines from the media in both the UK and the US. Perhaps the media base their reports by sticking their finger in the air to feel which way the wind is blowing. If you look at the political landscape the last decade, this has been the narrative of the majority of the time. The left have been canceling everybody they don't agree with. The right are conspiracy theorists. The left are warmongers. The right are anti-government and fear control. I think most people would agree this is the landscape of today's political world. However, 20 years ago or so, it was the opposite. It was the right that was canceling everyone, people such as Eminem, South Park, and most notably the Dixie Chicks for simply opposing the Iraq War. The Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, voiced their disapproval for the Iraq War and then President George Bush, saying they were ashamed they came from the same state as George Bush and how much they didn't support that war in Iraq. The Dixie Chicks faced a significant backlash from the American country audience after expressing their opposition to the Iraq War. This led to the band being blacklisted by numerous country radio stations, receiving death threats and criticism from fellow country musicians. The repercussions extended to the commercial success, with declining sales of music and concert tickets, along with the loss of corporate sponsorships. Take Hollywood. The last couple years, every award show could be mistaken for the Democratic Convention, and every time a celebrity gives a speech regarding their disapproval of anything Republican, they get a standing ovation. However, back in 2003, during the 75th Academy Awards, director Michael Moore gave a speech criticizing the Iraq War. This was the response.
We like nonfiction. We like nonfiction, and we live in fictitious times. We live in a time where we have fictitious election results that elects a fictitious president. We live in a time where we have a man sending us to war for fictitious reasons, whether it's the fictition of duct tape or the fictitious of orange alerts. We are against this war, Mr. Bush. Shame on you, Mr. Bush. Shame on you. And anytime you've got the Pope and the Dixie Chicks against you, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Could you imagine if a Hollywood director gave a speech today criticizing Trump and not only did none of the celebrities applaud, but the director got booed by the crowd? You would think you entered a portal into an alternative universe. Right now, numerous of bills that are being discussed are direct violations of people's personal life and freedoms. Almost all of these are being pushed by the left-wing politicians. It is almost like the left are using the book 1984 as a playbook more than a warning. However, let's not forget that the Patriot Act was passed through the Republican Party, which is literally a portrayal of Big Brother from 1984. Like mentioned before, this isn't the only aspect that was flipped throughout the years. When we hear the word conspiracy theorist, we often associate with the far right. But this was actually the notion of the left that the right was portraying back in the day. Take 9/11. There was never a time where being a patriot was more popular in the United States, and there was never more American flags outside people's homes after the World Trade Center attacks. That's probably why they really despised the 9/11 Truth Movement. The 9/11 Truth Movement was exactly what it sounds like, a movement that advocated that the government was behind 9/11. You'd be surprised that many of the supporters of this movement were liberals. A petition was signed by 200 people that calls for the investigation for the attacks. People that have signed this petition were the likes of Green Party candidate Ralph Nader, liberal actor Edward Asner, Democratic House of Representatives member Cynthia McKinney, liberal and socialist journalist Abby Martin, and former President Obama advisor and liberal commentator Van Jones. Marijuana was another controversial topic. As time moved on, more discoveries were made about the health benefits of the drug. However, the notion that the government lied about marijuana being a dangerous Schedule I drug that kills brain cells was portrayed by right-wing politicians as nothing more than a conspiracy theory. The benefits and safety of marijuana is well known today. However, throughout history, this was the perception of the drug.
Leading medical researchers are coming to the conclusion that marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug in the United States, and we haven't begun to find out all of the ill effects, but they are permanent ill effects.
The advocates and activists for cannabis legalization were predominantly liberal-leaning citizens. Liberals were once labeled as left-wing conspiracy theorists, no different than the right-wing commentators of today. As a matter of fact, the conspiracy god of our time, Alex Jones's audience, were mostly actually liberals when he first began, since he was critical of the Bush administration. The book The War of Art by Steven Pressfield had an interesting part about when he worked in marketing. He said that his boss told him to create the disease and we'll sell the cure. This is a strategy that the media uses, and it is quite effective. Most articles you read now and throughout history are about the world ending and what you have to do to stop it. But have you ever thought, is this what I have to do? Or is this just what they want me to do? Naval Ravikant had a good assessment. He said, the media's job is to make every problem your problem. The media has been wrong many of times before and have been guilty of corruption, but the majority of the news we see on the TV are none of our business. 90% of politics are no different than a reality TV show because the media is no longer in the news industry as much as they are in the entertainment industry. It is good to remember that the next time you get stressed out watching the news. Thanks for watching this video. If you are interested in more of my unqualified opinion, please subscribe.